episode. So what are we doing today? No, not smoking big fat joints. We're going to get this car back together, so we're welding some joints. Seems even the car's keen to get back together. This happened overnight, all on its own. Honest. Wouldn't it be nice if the doors actually went on as easy as this? Pain in the arse they are, but hey, as if by magic. But why am I putting the doors back on, I hear you ask? Well, there's a story. The B-pillars are the only part of the car that are not supported, and over time, with me leaning on the bar, they've dropped slightly, so I'm putting the doors on to help me check and reposition the height of the B-pillars. So let's get on with getting this thing back together. Oh, looks a little bit wobbly, doesn't it? If you take a close look, you'll see I've cut the brace bar between the B-pillars. This gives me a little more wiggle room when I pull the rear shell up. Fit doesn't look too bad, but there's still a lot to do before we set everything in position. But first, I want to get these B-pillars to the correct height. So what I need for this is a beefier brace bar that I can use as a jacking point. So here I weld the original brace bar back together, so it's the correct width, and then weld in the jacking brace bar. The rear part of the shell should now be in the right place, so I will clamp it down and do some measurements and make sure. So measuring front to back turrets and then diagonally. Here there's a bit of realisation that something's not quite right, so I adopt the teapot position and start thinking. And then go on a remeasuring odyssey. Which also involves remeasuring the centre line, which is a little more difficult than you might think, because basically you can't guarantee that the seat back panel and the parcel shelf are exactly in the centre, or the stampings are a perfect mirror around the centre line. Anyway, I measure as many points as I can, as accurately as I can. Who would have thought I had to turn into a contortionist on this project? Or an expert ninja.
You have all the grace of a reversing dump truck without any tyres on.
Yes, couldn't have said it better myself, eh? Anyway, back onto measuring as many accurate centre line points as possible. And it was obvious when measuring some of these, they certainly weren't in line. So with the measurements from the turrets being slightly out, the centre line was doubly important. The only way to make sure this shell is properly square and straight is for the either side and across the turrets to be the same, while the centre line was also correct. Because if you shorten one side and it twists, that's going to twist the centre line out of aspect. So basically all three need to be correct to ensure that the shell is spot on. And now the check. What's it look like? How far off are we? After a little bit of refinement, I'm happy with the measurements between the turrets and the centre line is correct. So now I need to set the B-pillar height, which is quite simple in the end because the spot weld drill marks is still on the sill and obviously on the B-pillar. So So we just measure those carefully, and that sets the B-pillar to exactly the height that it was when the spot welds were drilled out. Same check on the other side. Also check that the sills are level and straight. And the final check, get the digital level out. Check the front half of the shell, across the tunnel. Then check across the V-pillars. And check again. And check again. And check again. So, after much checking, I'm happy with the dimensions between the suspension turrets, front to back, diagonally, and also the centre line and the height of the B-pillar. So, finally, time to tack this thing in place. Stop it moving, stop it going anywhere. So that's one B-pillar set in place, and then the sill set in place. I said tack in place, didn't I? This is not tack in place, this is a proper weld. Bear in mind there was only 3 spot welds down this edge of the B-pillar to start off with, and 3 behind. I think this weld will be much stronger than factory. So, same on the other side, B-pillar tacked in place. Maybe a little bit more than tacked in place. And the sill tacked in place. Then the gaps in the roof. Again, these are really not important because the roof is coming off. As you can see, I was even too lazy to sand the paint off. I just welded it till it stuck. Lazy ass. Same lazy fucker approach on this side. I'd say this has only had a couple of welds just to keep things in place. Those few welds and the crossbar, you wouldn't believe how much stronger this is. Remember the wobbly thing we saw before? Pretty solid now. So now it's set in place. What does it look like? What's the centre line look like? Pretty good. I'd say spot on to the millimetre in fact. You might see a few that look a bit out, but they're the ones that really weren't in the centre due to the measuring points. Remember at the start of this video, the doors? Well, how do the doors fit? Perfect. So we don't need them anymore. So, say goodbye. So I'm happy with the dimensions. We'll go through what the measurements are later. But, so I can set it in place so nothing moves while we do other work on the shell, and when the roof eventually comes off, it wants strengthening. So guess what? Some more grinding, cutting, welding, and generally making shitloads of noise. So how's it look after all that? Actually, how's it feel after all that? Well, I can tell you trying to move this thing about, it is absolutely solid now. There is no give anywhere. So I'm happy now. This is a good base from which to weld up the sills fully and the rear quarters. We're also going to put some other strengthening in down the sills and in the rear quarters, and once we've done that, it'll be fit to go on a rotisserie so we can get to the underside. So what do the final dimensions look like? From the dash mounting holes to the rear turrets on either side are exactly the same to the millimetre. If we then go from turret to turret, front to back, there's 1mm difference between each side, and there's 1mm difference diagonally. I don't think I can get much better than that. That'll do me nicely.